Good evening, it's the 21st of April. I hope you're okay. How long will this go on for? And what to do for a Bible study then? I want to be helpful, but having watched loads of online stuff, I sense it's harder for you to concentrate when we're doing it like this. It's very unnatural, isn't it? But after some cul-de-sacs, I've settled on Hebrews 11, page 1209. Hebrews 11, page 1209. Why Hebrews 11? It's got people in it, which God knows we like, and it makes it different to Romans, and it's manageable, and there's a lockdown in verse 36. The messaging to us in COVID-19 is to keep on, persevering, don't give up, and we'll be safe in the end. And it does feel like ages. The Christian life is kind of like the same. Keep on believing, don't give up. There's echoes of lockdown there, aren't there? Keep on trusting and enduring for a brighter future. Faith and endurance. You've heard it said, the Christian life is more of a marathon than a sprint. So the normal Christian life is keep on believing, don't give up. Let me read 10 verse 35 and following. 10:35. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. For in just a little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. And my righteous one will live by faith, and I take no pleasure in the one who shrinks back. 10:39. But we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. There you see, Christians are warned and wooed. If you shrink back, verse 39, you will go to hell, be destroyed. If you keep on believing, you will be saved. Heaven, new creation. And then we arrive at Hebrews 11:1. This is God's Hall of Fame, or rather God's Hall of Faith fame. Just look at 1 and 2, and we'll see the what of faith, the who of faith, and the why of faith. First of all, the what of faith, verse 1. Just note, this verse is not a definition, but it is a description. Like love in 1 Corinthians 13 is not a definition, but a description. Here, this is not a full definition of faith. There's no mention of Christ or sin. No, this is how faith works. It's a demonstration of faith in action. What does the world think of faith? Maybe like this 6-year-old. A mum once asked her 6-year-old what he'd learned in Sunday school. He said the teacher had talked about faith. His mum asked, and what's faith? Her son responded, I think it's believing in what you know ain't so. Rubbish. Faith is not built or on things that aren't true. Faith is built on facts. Look at verse 1, confidence and conviction. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance or conviction about what we do not see. Confidence. Faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. Certainty, faith with substance. This is not hope so, but know so, because God has willed it. This is a future-focused faith. That's what hope suggests. Built on what God has done in the past. The best is yet to come. And it will happen, because God has promised it. At the end of the chapter in verse 39, it says, these were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. Faith binds me securely to this reality. Future joy is a key theme in Hebrews 11. For the joy set before us in the future, that helps us to keep faith in the present. Confidence and then conviction. Faith gives us assurance about things we cannot see. A firm conviction that God is at work, though it's hard to see that at times. Faith is spiritual perception, insight into the unseen. Despite how things might look, we trust, obey courageously and steadily. And as we know, invisible realities are everywhere. Faith is conviction in these unseen realities and acting on it. God's existence is unseen. God's faithfulness is really unseen. God's decreeing and directing of the details of our lives are unseen, but faith is knowing these realities and acting upon them. Verse 1, that's what of faith. Verse 2 is the who and the why of faith. Verse 2 summarised is, because of their faith in action, believers of old won God's approval. So you see in verse 2 the who of faith, the ancients, those of old, role models of faith in the Old Testament. We love stories, don't we? It makes truth real, makes us feel something, inspires us. Stories of people transform us without actually knowing it. And therefore, this is faith in action in Hebrews 11. How to keep on over days and weeks and months and years. It often strikes me how many ordinary weeks and years these famous Old Testament believers just walked by faith. These last 4 weeks for you have seemed a long time. Abraham's 20 years of waiting for a child. Moses 40 years as a shepherd in the wilderness. We are to look to these ordinary believers in Hebrews 11 for encouragement. They endured hardship and opposition that inspires us, and we are one with them. Their persistent, forward-looking faith in the midst of long lockdowns, slow lives, daily grind. We just need their example. I read 39 to you. Verse 40, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Obviously, we are in the best of times after Jesus. The story is not complete without us. We have something better, and yet we are still waiting. They were waiting for the Messiah's first advent. We are waiting for the Messiah's second advent. And just note, while we're in 12:1, these lovely verses about who is our supreme example. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. The what, the who, and finally the why of faith. And we see already in 12:2 here, it was for future joy. That's what kept Jesus on the cross. Why should we keep believing and not give up? It's for future joy. The best is yet to come. I read, the Christian life does not always go well, but the Christian life always ends well. Look at future joy, 25. Moses chose to be ill-treated rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Verse 26, he regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. 27, he saw him who is invisible. So the motive is future joy, and I think that's kind of linked with God's approval. Go back to our verse in 11:2. This is what the ancients were commended for. Through their faith, the people in days of old earned a good reputation. That's what this verb is talking about, commended for by God. You can think whose opinion of you matters the most. It could be your family, it could be your friends, but God's opinion of us, that's the thing that will motivate us. Notice verse 4, by faith Abel was commended as righteous. Verse 5, Enoch was commended as one who pleased God. This is God's honours list then, and God's medal ceremony for ordinary faith-filled, failing, ordinary, keeping on believers. God commends. It's now become a COVID-19 tradition, hasn't it, to commend those key workers on Thursdays at 8 p.m, to applaud those risking their lives. And we go outside and we take our pots and pans and kettles and we smash them and clap and applaud and commend. Well, dear believer, imagine God applauding or even applauding you. God commending you. God commending you when you resist short-term fleeting pleasures of sin. Or God commending you when you choose to suffer by obeying the Bible. God commending you when you decide to be joyful in the midst of corona. God commending you when you daily follow God. Like Moses, who saw God who is invisible but very real, and he is easy to please, not hard to please. Well, that's our first two verses of Hebrews 11, faith. When missionary John Paton was translating the Bible for the South Sea Islanders, he couldn't find a word in their vocabulary for the word faith or trusting or believing. He had no idea how he could find a word to convey that meaning. One day, he was in his hut translating, and a native came running up the stairs into his study and flopped in a chair, exhausted after a long hunting trip. The native said to Paton something like this: "It's so good to stretch myself out and rest my whole weight in this chair." And that was the word John Paton was looking for. Faith is resting your whole weight on God. Believing is putting your whole weight on God. If God said it in his word, then it's true, and I will rest my whole weight on it. We will keep on believing. We will not give up. Real faith is believing without seeing. It's the conviction of things not seen, and it's living on the basis of that conviction. Christians believe God to the point of banking their lives on his promises. May God therefore use Hebrews 11 to encourage us in these difficult and perhaps long days over this lockdown. May God encourage you and be with you. I've put another video on the email if you want to watch that as well. Have an enjoyable evening and a good week, and we'll see you on Zoom on Sunday, God willing. Thank you.